Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Progress Pondcast. This is episode 16 with Martin Longman and me, Brendan Squire. It's been a hot minute since we talked at you, probably about a month or so since the Joe Hohenstein interview. Is that about right? A little more than a month, Marty?
Probably more than a month, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Basically, it's been a very busy time, I think, for both of us. I know that with me, um, getting back to school has really taken up a lot of my time. I don't want to talk too much about my school, but it is a rough school that serves a fairly low income and fairly some fairly rough neighborhoods where there's a lot of violence, and unfortunately that sometimes plays out in the hallways. Um,
In the classrooms.
and classrooms. It was a rough week this week, and generally, but not to dwell on that kind of stuff. But generally, even if it's not like a rough week like it was this this past one, I usually need a lot. I find myself completely spent on the weekends in a way that I'm not during summer. So it's been difficult for me, especially with juggling that time with two other bands and one that's kind of sort of brewing as well. And Marty, I know that you in particular have had kind of had a go of it the past month and a half.
Yeah, it would have been a challenge anyway, because my son has started high school,
Oh,
and
that's right.
yeah, and he's playing. Uh, well, he just finished his school soccer season, so he was playing for the school, and then he was playing for his club. And so I've got, between practices and games, it's like a full-time job for me, getting them there and watching them. And I mean, I love it, but it takes up a lot of my, uh I guess what you would call, spare time.
Yeah,
um
aren't you coaching or refereeing this year too, or whatever it is?
no, I'm not, but Finn has been refereeing. He just refereed 2 games this morning.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just, younger kids. And yeah, so I went to pick him up. I got there a little early, so I got to watch him do his thing. He's, confident, and it's fun to watch. So I've thought about doing some reffing, but there's a lot of that you have to go into it. You have to get registered with the state, and so that's another commitment.
Oh yeah.
But it's something that I might do in the future.
No, and one of the guys in my school is he also coaches. He's one of the football coaches, football and I think soccer too. And like when he never gets home from school before 6 o'clock, sometimes seven
Right.
o'clock in the evening. And
Yeah.
then he gets up at 5 or 6 o'clock to go do the whole thing again. And then his weekends are spoken for too because he's got games during the weekend for these are for
Right.
the high school kids, not the high school kids, the middle school kids.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I can imagine it's busy,
Oh yeah.
busy.
And
Yeah.
then, on top of that, I've had a lot of, my health's been fine, but there's been a lot of health issues with friends and family, death in the family, hospitalizations. One of my close friends is still in the hospital. He's been in the hospital for a couple of weeks,
Oof.
and I didn't think he was necessarily going to pull through when I got the initial report, but he is getting better every day. So that is a miracle, and that's fantastic. But it's been weighing on me
Oh, I can
a
imagine.
lot. And a dear uncle of mine, esteemed professor at Columbia University, for, I think he started there in 1973, and he retired this year. But he's, my father's little brother. He passed away just in the last 2 weeks. And then my father's other brother, also a younger brother, he had a fall and broke his ribs,
Ugh.
and he's in the hospital. And so it's been tough on my dad, and that's tough on me.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. And then, you got all this. I know your people should know that your birthday's on Monday.
And my birthday plans got canceled this weekend because my I was supposed to be going out to Central PA where my girlfriend lives. And yeah, we were talking about it earlier. Her I got a message either Wednesday or Thursday, I think Wednesday, And she was like, my mom had a fall, and her mom broke her hip, and she had to go to the hospital. So my gal went out to go see her mom, obviously. But so yeah, I got everybody. Getting older sucks, man.
Yeah,
It sucks. It's not for the weak, as they say.
it's not great for us, and then for our parents' generation, it's
Yeah.
both my parents are in good health, knock on wood, but they're in their 90s,
Yeah.
and
Uh, which reminds me,
so
have you heard Patton Oswalt's birthday, his treatise on birthdays?
I did, but I forgot.
His whole thing is that you really only get like 10 birthdays. You get a
Okay,
birthday from you get until you get a birthday 1 through 9, you get a birthday because you're a little kid.
yeah,
10 years old, you get a birthday because you turn 10. Now you're a decade. But you don't get a birthday for 11 or 12 because there's nothing special about that. But 13, now you're a teenager. 16, you can drive.
sweet
Eight,
16.
18 and 19, you get birthdays. 18 because you can vote, you can buy a gun, you can go off to war. 19 because that's your last teenage year.
Okay,
And then you get one on 20, two
well,
decades, and then
okay,
one on 21. And then after that, you only get a birthday on the decade. Only every you get one at 30, 40,
like no one
50,
cares.
6. Yeah, no one cares. And that's what he's saying. It's
Yeah,
like, I'm 50, I'm going to be 54. So what? Go to work.
yeah, yeah.
So, but the crux of it is that at 90, you start
Uh-huh.
getting a birthday every year again.
Oh, okay.
But with each birthday, a specific law no longer applies to you.
Uh-huh.
Starting with 91, you can litter. 92. Yeah, hang on. Speaking of old, my dad's on the phone. Let me let him go.
Oh my God.
Hey, Dad, I'm in the middle of podcasting. Can you call me back in a bit? I'll call you when I'm ready. All right, later. The yeah, and each law, the bigger the
Well,
law, the more qualifications
you
there
said
are.
91 you can litter.
91 you can litter,
Okay.
92, 93 you can steal stuff, but only stuff you can carry with your own hands. You're not allowed to. You have to be able to carry it with your own hands. And at some point it gets to the point like once you get to 100, you can murder people, but only if you use your bare hands. You're not allowed to use a gun, or it's got to be your bare hands. The idea being you'll be so feeble by that point.
They couldn't even do it.
Yeah, you couldn't even do it. Speaking of feeble, I want to shift gears because there is a very, very special man with very special orange skin color and special hair that has been in appearing in public lately. And he has seemed to be more and more feeble with every single appearance, of which he may be cutting back some of those appearances. Do you know who I'm talking about, Marty Longman?
Does he have tiny hands
He has little baby hands.
and a
Yes.
little mushroom cap?
And a little mushroom cap. Cutesy wootsy mushroom cap. Yep. We are, of course, talking about everybody's favorite and everybody's favorite president, as he calls himself.
Disgraced ex-president.
We have a disgraced ex-president, disgraced felon ex-president
Yes. Slash rapist.
slash rapist. But yeah, he's been like I said, school keeps me busy. I still get to catch up with some stuff, and I don't have my TV on the news all the time. Albeit I'm certainly doom scrolling too much on the internet. But I saw after the fact all about his rally in Oaks, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
His dance party there. Did you catch that live?
No, I thought about it. I only heard about it like the same day, but it would have just been like probably a 20-minute drive.
They have that. I think it was the same place that they have the annual Canna Fest. I'm almost certain it is.
They have, over there in Oaks, they do like Cirque du Soleil, and they have they have a lot of things that they can do over there. They've got a
Yeah.
big area. I'm not even sure what the venue was for that, but yeah. So a couple of people had some kind of medical emergency,
Yeah.
and I don't know why he reacted this way, but he was just okay. Forget everything we were gonna do. I was gonna take questions, but I'm not gonna do that. Let's just put on some music, and he started playing
He played.
his.
Did he play Ave Maria like 3 times in a row, or like 3 different versions of it? I could have sworn that that happened.
I'm going to be honest with you. I did see a list of some of the songs that he played, and that was one of them. I don't know if he repeated anything. But he just stood up there and like swayed for 39 minutes.
Dude, it was the weirdest. That was some weird shit.
Yeah. I mean, really, really strange behavior. Um,
Strange is putting it. Strange is putting it mildly, man. I watched
yeah.
some of that, and like, so one of a relative of mine had some kind of cognitive decline. I don't know if it was Alzheimer's or something like that. One thing I learned about that kind of thing, like cognitive decline, is that people who have it will often try to hide it. They know something's wrong, but they don't quite know what. So they'll try to hide it behind lies and excuses and stuff. That's a real thing. And my guess is the reason he was like, who wants it? And that's the way he said it. Oh, let's put on music. Who wants to hear questions anyway? That's how
Yeah.
he said it. And he said it like that with that same kind of gravelly thing. Who wants to hear questions anyway? Huh? Come on.
Yeah.
And the way I saw it, the way I interpreted it was that like, oh, this man doesn't want to have to answer any questions. And so he's doing this other thing, you know, as an excuse to
You
not
know,
answer questions. Oh,
wh-
we're just going to play music. Who wants your questions anyway? You know, which
one of the
is,
weird things about Trump
I
is
mean, like, which is. Let me just continue on that for a second,
sure,
because the
sure.
reason that was a town hall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason you go to a town hall is because you have questions and you want to hear questions. That's the whole point of a town hall. And so for him to stand up there and say, "Who wants to hear questions anyway?" is just freaking bizarre. That is
Yeah.
freaking bizarre. It's like me going into my journalism class and with well-behaved students, not the chaotic students, with well-engaged, interested students who want to do journalism, going in there like, who wants to talk about journalism? Let's watch some Bugs Bunny. It just
Yeah.
it makes no sense. It
No.
just it and yeah. Anyway, so
And yeah, he can't dance. And yeah, I don't know.
no, he can't dance.
Yeah. I don't know. The weird thing about Trump is another candidate. Because, well, first of all, let me preface this. This isn't the only weird thing that's been going on, right?
Oh
Like
no,
he was supposed to do an appearance down in Savannah, Georgia, with the National Rifle Association,
he
and
canceled that.
yeah, it was weird. Like the NRA, the first thing I saw was the NRA canceled it, and I was like, "That's weird. Like, why would they do that?" But I think they were just covering to make it so they didn't have to say he was canceling. I mean, that's my guess.
And he backed out of a CNBC interview, apparently with an interviewer who's more than a little bit MAGA friendly, and he backed out of that too.
I think that's the squawk box thing, and he backed out of obviously the 60 Minutes interview. He was supposed to do this thing with I forget the name of it, the Strand or something like that, but it's a website
The
that
shakedown, the shakedown, the
no, I'm not sure what it
the
is.
shade, the
The
shade.
Shade, that's it. Yeah, yeah. And I was not familiar with it, but it's the reason he wanted to go on was to talk to a black audience, and backed out of that. And someone on his campaign said, "Well, he's just exhausted." Um, so that leaked out. Um, Obviously, he has not agreed to do any more debates. And so, in a normal candidate, you'd say maybe the campaign is telling him, look, you got this in the bag. There's no reason to risk making any big gaffes. You know, you're tired. Let's just not do anything. But with Trump, it's like there's no way that anybody's telling him that because he doesn't listen.
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah. So, like, I guess, he is exhausted because he's canceling this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't imagine his campaign manager being like, you better not go on there. You're going to fuck it up.
No, they're not going to say that to him.
No.
They would never say that to him.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to get fired from the Trump campaign. And then there's your money,
Right.
there's your income out the window. No, I'm not sure how they're handling it, but yeah, but to me it's been interesting to see the media kind of finally start to notice this. Like the Washington Post has had some articles about it. The New York Times has had more than one article about it, finally. Um, and they haven't like Peter Baker, was a reliable Biden troll,
Yep.
constantly bringing up his age and doing that whole both sidesing stuff. And I've seen this term going around now called sane washing. Peter Baker has been a gleeful and enthusiastic sane washer. So is the Times in general. There's been some great articles about the Times and sane washing. For those of you who haven't,
Which
for
is
those of for,
taking something completely bananas that Trump does and explaining it in some way that is other than just he's demented or he's evil.
for example,
You
like the
know,
the headlines about his dance party were just like there were a whole bunch of them that did that. They were like the Trump transforms town hall into impromptu dance party, and it's like
yeah,
what
no,
what
no,
okay.
dude melted down and got weird. Like,
Yeah. And like
yeah,
only one or two newspapers actually covered it that way.
yeah.
Only a couple. I was scanning Memorandum. You recommended that page. I didn't used to enjoy it as much, and it's still not my favorite compared to Political Wire, which is one of my favorite blogs to read now. And it just gets right to the point. I don't have to go through a bunch of stuff. It's just like they got it. And
Yeah.
but Memorandum is also quite good in that aspect, and they had a whole listing of sane washing things. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's kind of it's disturbing and fascinating to watch at the same time, and it just makes the whole election that much more freaking tense. I mean,
Well, so here's the thing, Brendan. So he's had these things like even when he has appeared, it hasn't gone well. So he did
yeah.
this thing in Chicago where he went to the economic club there,
Oh
and
boy.
and he didn't make any sense. Um, he didn't help himself at all, you know, and he went on Fox News last weekend, and what did he say? He was the father of IVF or something. I forget what
He
he.
went on
Oh
Univision
no no
for
no 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 no! You know what? He did do that, but that was at a separate thing. He went on Fox News last weekend and started talking about the the enemies within and how you could sick the military on them,
oh yeah.
and that alarmed a lot of people, obviously. And then he went on Fox and Friends on Friday, and he did something else weird there. I wrote about it, and now I already forgot about it because this guy does so much stuff
Well, while you're looking for it, the
I
I'll bring up
that I can't even keep up with it.
his
Um,
Univision appearance. He went on a Univision appearance on Univision to talk to Latino voters,
oh
and
yeah,
that was also a disaster. He claimed that nobody that he said in this order, Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed at the thing. It was all peace and love. And when he put those two absolutely A does not equal B kind of things together. Like you saw
yeah,
this one woman's head just snap up and like she'd been punched in the face, and nobody was buying his nonsense. Like they were all standing there with their arms crossed, heads cocked, like looking at him like the piece of shit he is, and like almost like a mom listening to their all these everybody looked like a mom or a dad listening to their kid lie to them, arms folded, heads cocked to the side. One guy was like, "I'm a registered Republican, but I don't feel comfortable with your rhetoric and what's been going on. And the more Trump responded to him, the more the guy's head like went down, and he's like looking at him, doing like the side eye, just like
Yeah.
looking at a little kid, being like, and I didn't eat the cookies. The crumbs on my mouth, they're not there. And
Yeah.
I was, it was my sister who it was amazing to watch.
So here's what he did on Friday. He went on Fox and Friends, and he said he was going to tell the CEO of Fox, Rupert Murdoch, not to run any political advertising that's against him
Oh yeah, I heard
for
that.
the next 3 weeks, and also to not bring on any guests that would offer any opinion or any criticism of him.
I saw
And
that. I saw that article. That was a great article you did. That was wonderful. I
yeah,
mean,
so that's a
insane.
weird misunderstanding of the First Amendment, that
To
you
say the
can
least.
just order around people and tell them that they can't accept advertising. And he's not even the president, he's just a candidate, and he's trying to do this. Of course, as I pointed out in that article, Ron DeSantis was doing the same thing in Florida for real, threatening stations that ran ads supportive of,
Restoring abortion rights.
yes,
Yeah.
which is on the ballot in Florida. And so he was threatening stations, and a federal judge came in, Thursday or Friday, and said, you need to knock that off, DeSantis, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
You can't dictate what people say. It's free speech.
It's interesting that you I'm gonna tangent off for a minute. I read the Judge Chutkan's um document, the 5-page document that went along with the release of the new release of that appendix
Yeah.
from the Trump files. And it's interesting that you bring up he's not even president and he's trying to make these threats. Her response to him included a whole chunk on that, saying like, you're not the president. This releasing these documents has no impact on you as president because you're not president. You know,
Right.
you're not, you're a private citizen running for office. So, you clearly don't understand how this works. It was, uh,
But
it's like one headache. It's one
The
headache
Supreme
after
Court
another.
keeps giving him more and more power, retroactively. Nothing he did in office could be a crime and all of that. So you never know. You think, oh, Judge Chutkan, and this is the case, the January 6th case, Judge Chutkan can rule completely sensibly. And then all of a sudden, John Roberts' court can do something insane.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Did you see John Roberts crying a couple weeks ago? There was an article at
I
CNN.
wish I had literally seen him crying,
Yeah,
but yeah,
me too.
I
There's an
saw
art.
him whining.
Yeah, there was an
Yeah,
article on CNN about how he was blindsided. Oh, he was blindsided, and he's so shocked and hurt by the reaction to his stupid immunity thing. He's like, "Oh, da, da," and none of his excuses are working. He's like, "What do you mean? Why aren't people happy? And it's like he's like just shocked, utterly shocked that like people have no respect for the court, people have no respect for him. You know,
it doesn't even make any sense.
I
Like,
know.
how could he be unaware that the American people have, you and I are in our mid 50s. So that's a half a century. We've been sentient,
Yeah.
and it's always been that no one's above the law. It's always been like the example of Nixon and Watergate. You get out of line, guess what? You got to leave.
Yep.
And it's always been, hey, maybe we shouldn't have pardoned Nixon because we weren't tough enough on him to create enough deterrence. Reagan just, oh, I'll just fund the Contras. I don't give a shit. What are you going to do? You know?
Yeah.
And Trump with his getting impeached twice.
It's
Um,
it's such utter nonsense right now.
but it's this idea that the president can now commit crimes if they're in the line of duty, that's just completely contrary to everything we were taught. So how could he think everyone would be okay with that?
One
I
of
mean,
the
if you're just like worried about Trump and you don't want him to get in trouble and don't want him to go to prison, you might like it just for that one reason, you know. But if you're thinking at all like about the future, how do you hold a president accountable? We've already learned that president can go pretty far off the ledge and not get convicted because you need 2/3 of the Senate. And that's a just partisan people looked at Trump after the January 6th thing and they came up with whatever excuse they could come up with.
any
So they
excuse they
didn't,
could come up with. I mean, like,
and now, you know,
like
the whole
these.
point of that impeachment, that second one, was so he couldn't run again.
Yeah, I know.
That was, and they fucked it up.
Yep, they fucked it all up. The
So I don't know how Roberts.
the people in the Senate right now would have let Nixon skate.
Oh,
You know,
there's no
they would
question
never
about
have
it.
they never would have walked down to the White House and been like, dude, you gotta go.
There's no
Never.
question.
No
There's no
question.
question. They would have applauded him.
There was it just came out that in this new book about Mitch McConnell or something, that Mitch McConnell calls, you know, Trump a stupid bastard and despicable. And it's like, great, I'm glad you call him those names. That's good. But when you were supposed to do something about it, you didn't do anything. You were a meek little turtle, and you know, you didn't do anything.
Yeah. And he's like, I had to do that if I wanted to stay the leader of the party in the Senate.
And it's like you're a
And
million,
you know what?
and it's like you're a million years old. Why not just take the retirement, dude? You know, convict the guy, you know, and just retire. Go to Italy, like freaking Atrios used to complain about the old people in about the gerontocracy in D.C. He's like, why are you still there? Why are you not, you know, somewhere on the Italian coast drinking wine and looking at the sea? You know, I mean, my God. You know, it's not, and you can tell these people aren't even happy in their jobs, you know? So yeah, but yeah, it's disgusting. It's hard for me to even talk about this.
Yeah, and it's terrifying too. Which
Oh, it's
gets to
terrifying.
because, you know, we're talking about that objectively. Trump has had a very bad several weeks on the campaign trail. You know, we've gone over a bunch of it. It's like he can't make an appearance without creating negative headlines. You know, a good day he like strands all his supporters in the desert. Right, that's a good day.
That was
You know?
hilarious.
Yeah, that's a good day for him recently. You know, more likely he just raises questions about his mental acuity and his health. So at the same
By the way,
time,
he still hasn't released his health records.
of
And
course not.
he was just a couple weeks ago. He's just like making some noise about Kamala should take a cognitive test. And I'm like thinking to myself, you buddy, you don't want to go there, you know.
No, but he's had objectively a terrible set of weeks here, and yet the polls keep getting closer, and he is now like ahead in Nate Silver's thing. He's ahead in the betting markets. He's ahead in another a similar competitor to Nate Silver. He's like moving ahead. He's closing the gap.
I just don't understand.
Midwest.
I don't understand how
All these polls are showing nothing but momentum to Trump in the face of what would be causing that, because everything we're seeing should argue the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's a number of possibilities. One is that that's not what's actually happening. That the polls, there's some other explanation for why
We
the
s-
polls are moving the way they are.
we saw that with
Um,
the whole red wave thing a couple years ago, right? Weren't we supposed to get the big red wave that was going to, destroy the Democrats in the off year elections, and that never materialized? Hasn't it been
yeah.
true? Hasn't it been true that the Republicans have been underperforming in the poll? Like you talked about this, right? Didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
This was what you talked about, the pixie dust thing? Is that what we're seeing in the polls?
I think it's part of it. Well, part of the problem
Expand
is
expand on that expand on that pixie dust thing for a spot, because not everybody reads the blog. I do, but not everybody
okay.
does.
Yeah. So one of the things that is true is that in 2016 and in 2020, the pollsters underestimated how well Trump would do. And in the case of 2016, they had Hillary winning comfortably, not by a landslide or anything, but no one was particularly worried because the polls showed her in control. So him winning was a shock. Him winning certain states like Michigan and Pennsylvania were like a complete shock. Um, and then in 2020, while he lost, it was much closer than the polls indicated that it would be. And so the pollsters are like, what is that saying? Twice shy or whatever it is.
Once bitten, twice shy.
That's it, right?
Once bitten,
Twice. So
twice shy, babe. Thank you, Poison.
twice bitten, really, really shy is
Yeah.
part of it, right? So the problem is, um, they haven't quite figured out how to fix the poll so that like that doesn't happen again. So the pixie dust is uh, the quick explanation is this. If you, when you're doing a poll, if you ask people who they voted for last time, they, you don't get an accurate picture of who they actually voted for last time. And the reason is people tend to forget or lie about voting for the loser. Okay. So if you ask people who they voted for last time, there's going to be way more people who say Biden than was actually the case. A lot of those people who said they voted for Biden didn't vote for Biden. Okay. And the pollsters know this, and it's why they don't use that in the weighting of polls to you get a sample of people and then you weight it so that it actually reflects what you expect turnout to be. And they could just weight it by, well, let's match it to what people say they voted for last time. But if you do that, it will actually show the loser of the last election doing better than they're actually doing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I kind of got to wrap my brain around it, but yes. But also because
It's
I read the article too. I read your
well,
article too.
okay. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping it's not too confusing. It took me a minute to figure it out,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the bottom line is if you well, the bottom line is that the pollsters are asking this question and using it to weight their polls. And probably about 2/3 of the pollsters are doing this. And the reason they're doing it is because they know it'll give about a 3 to 4 percentage bump to Trump. And the reason they think that's okay instead of just wrong is because they think whatever model we come up with is going to underestimate Trump's vote by 3 or 4%, because that's what happened the last two times. And if we just do this, then we're basically going to get right. So now when you go and look at that, you can say, well, maybe that I have questions about whether that's scientific in any kind of way, but that doesn't matter. What matters is it leading to a more accurate poll? Because what's happening is we have 50-50 polls in like every battleground state. You can go down the list. It's like when you average the polls, it's like up by one in Michigan, up by one in Wisconsin, up by one in Pennsylvania, down by one in Georgia, down by one in Arizona. It's every state is converged on 50-50. And Um, I'm a little. This is maybe my optimistic thing on this is they just figure let's keep it 50-50 and then we can't really be wrong. Nobody can go and say you blew it again. It's like, hey, we said it was 50-50. We had it in every state 50-50. You can't say, well, you blew Michigan or you blew Arizona because we told you we had no idea. And it seems like even if that's not like a conscious effort on any particular pollster's part, it kind of has a collective life where they're all converging. They don't want to get out on an island. And so what we're seeing is like prognosticators afraid to prognosticate, afraid to make a call. And that's reflected actually in their methodology where, I'll just flip it around for you, Brendan. If doing it's called the recall vote, right? Who do you recall voting for 4 years ago? If that recall vote was benefiting Harris by 4 points, there is no way they would be doing it. And it's not because they dislike Harris or they want to help Trump. It's because the problem they're trying to fix is underestimating Trump.
Yeah.
So not
No,
going
I
to use a
understand.
methodology that they know overestimates Harris, right?
Yeah.
But anyway,
No,
so
I get what you're saying. They're basically weighting it a little towards Trump because they underestimated him last time and they
yeah,
underestimated the time before that. So it's like, well, whatever he's polling, we gotta add a little bit more because we don't know,
yeah.
and we don't
And
want to get caught with our pants down.
what it means also, though, is that if they were not using that weighting, that she would be showing up ahead by 3 or 4 points, including in a lot of these battleground states.
Yeah,
And it would be looking like she was, on a glide path to winning. Now, again, I just said Hillary looked like that,
yeah,
right? So that wasn't a guarantee of anything. But I can guarantee this, that there's a benefit to looking like you're winning. I mean, there is
yes.
a benefit. There's a
Oh,
bandwagon
absolutely.
effect. There's a bandwagon effect. Now there's a benefit too, even if you're winning, if everyone thinks it's 50-50, that people are like, oh my God, I got to get out there. I got to volunteer. I got to
I
make
was
phone
just
calls. I got to, right? So
I was
everything
just going to
cuts
say the
both
same
ways.
thing. I
Yeah.
was
You
just
see
going
a
to say
lot
the
of
same.
these ads from people, candidates saying, give me money. I'm down by 1 point. And then you like look at the poll and it's like, no, you're up by 3 points, but the ad says you're down. So people are going to, be more inclined. And so yes, you want to look like you're a winner, but if as long as you don't look like you're definitely going to lose, it's not, it doesn't decrease your
Yeah.
enthusiasm. So
In general, I've been so as you know, Political Wire will often, you know, very brief posts. It'll be like, Harris up by 1 in Georgia, Trump, up by 1 in North Carolina. I don't know the numbers. I have gotten to
yeah,
this point where, and then the next day it'll be completely different. Harris down by a point in Georgia, Harris up by 2 in North Carolina, and it's just blah
sure,
blah blah. So I've tuned out a lot of it as when I read. So when I read the polls and I read, or not the polls, articles about the polls, and I read articles about the election, I am often seized with a sense of absolute dread,
right,
just absolute dread. But then what I wind up telling myself is, and I look at these numbers, which, bounce around and they contradict each other, every day, sometimes by the end of the day. And I've started to basically tune out the noise. I'm looking at his, I was never particularly good with math or stats or anything, but we used to have to do these things called scatter charts or something where you'd have a bunch of lines on a chart. You'd have to draw a line connecting
yeah,
them and come up with a mean or an average and a median. And you had to,
sure,
they taught you how to like ignore like the noise. A lot of the dots were noise. You don't pay attention to them. And so I've been tuning out a lot of it as noise. And I've come to I guess this is probably just as much to save my own sanity. But at the end of the day, it boils down to who's working hardest and who's getting it out the most. I didn't canvass last week because I had a massive attack of sciatica and could not walk. But the past 2 weeks before that, weekends before that, I was out canvassing. I've been glad to see more and more people knocking on my door over the course of the week. I think that there's been at least 3 or 4 people that have come by this week alone, knocking on the door, getting out the vote for Harris. Um, there are finally billboards around Philadelphia with Harris ads on them. The What is lacking is signs for houses. It's one of the number one things that people have asked me at the door where they can get a sign. My dad tried to get a sign, was unable to.
No,
I actually,
signs don't vote. Remember
yeah, I
Grandma?
know. Signs don't vote.
Signs don't vote.
Signs don't vote. But like you said, it's also good to look like a winner, and there's a bandwagon effect.
That's true.
There's a
That's
bandwagon
true.
effect, and putting signs in the window is showing that you're on the bandwagon. And look, in
Yeah.
my neighborhood, I'm in Port Richmond. I would say it is a very Trump heavy neighborhood in here. And
Yep.
my neighbor 2 doors down was like, "Oh, I love your sign." I was like, "Oh, I think I can get you one." And I was able to get her a sign. So
Nice.
now in a fairly Trumpy neighborhood, on my block at least, there are 2 Harris signs in the windows. And I absolutely know the young folks that moved in a couple of months ago, guaranteed they're going to be they're Harris voters too. But you get a bandwagon effect when you're putting up stuff like that. It makes it, because you know I've been seeing people get all upset that she's courting Republicans, and on an ordinary election
I just
year.
want to say those are stupid people.
Yes, I agree. On an ordinary election year, I might be more inclined to agree with that point of view, but this is not an ordinary election year, and Trump is not an ordinary Republican.
And
So, and there are,
she's not
yeah,
pandering to them on
she's also not
policy.
pandering to them, but there is a significant population of anti-Trump Republicans out there, people that can be won over, independents that can be won over, and
That's
like you said
right.
about bandwagon, putting up signs in your window makes other people see that, like, oh, I guess it's okay,
Right.
it's passive outreach, but it's outreach. That's all I wanted to
It's
say about
probably more
that.
important for Trump too, that out here in the suburbs they've done a big effort on the signs. And so that's normalizing it. It's like, look, all these neighbors are voting for Trump. Like maybe he's not such a freak. So yeah, it works. It works, but I wouldn't worry too much about signs down in Philadelphia.
No,
But
as long as we deliver the city, that's all I care about. All we got to do
yeah,
is win.
that's
We got
right.
to win. That's the main thing right now. We have to win.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about was they started doing the early voting in Georgia and North Carolina this week, and they had bonkers turnout.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and I guess I sent you a link, a little text uh, on one thing about this. Let me see if I okay. I scroll up. Okay. So yeah, there's this thing called Target Smart, that
Mm-hmm.
the data collection firm that looks at who's voting. So they don't know how people voted, but they can look at it by, are they registered as Democrats or Republicans or something else. In most states, they can look at that. And so they say that over 8.4 million voters have cast their ballots as of yesterday.
Wow.
That would be October 18th. And 4.5 million of them are Democrats compared to 3.1 million that are Republicans. That is, I don't know what the percentages is on that, but it's massive.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a 1.4 million advantage out of only 8.4 million people who voted. That's massive.
Yeah, that's massive.
And
I
so go ahead.
I was going to do a mail-in ballot myself, but mine arrived in the rain. Um, and
Figures.
the mailbox on our
The
door
only time
wasn't
it the
proper.
only time it rained in the last
Yeah,
60 days.
yeah, I know. The one and the so the in for those of you who don't live in Pennsylvania, when you vote by mail, you actually have two envelopes. You have to put in there's an inside secret envelope that you got to put your ballot in, seal that separately from the outside envelope. And the glue on the I tried to dry it out, but the glue on that and on that inside envelope was ruined. So I got the day off from work anyway, so I'm just going to go vote in person. Why not?
You know,
I'm
the
not worried about
advantage,
it.
I mean, I wish everyone would vote early, but the advantage is that your little number one will show up on election night
Yeah.
when they first start showing the results. It'll be there.
Yep.
Whereas the mail-in votes in Pennsylvania get counted later.
Which is
Some
such a
states they
stupid
get counted
policy.
earlier. Some can, yeah, but they don't allow that here. Um, so anyway, the thing that's interesting is obviously it's great that all these Democrats are voting early, but they'll tell you it doesn't really mean anything as far as predicting the outcome. It's not a bad thing by any means because the main advantage is that's like that's like 1.5 million voters the Democrats don't have to worry about compared to the Republicans. Like, okay, we know they're a supporter, but did they actually vote? They can cross that off their list and they can focus on other people. So that is the main advantage of getting out that early vote. But if it's just a function of Republicans preferring to vote in person because they don't trust early voting, they don't trust mail voting, and they're just going to show up on election day, then it's kind of a wash. It's more just how people prefer to vote. Um, but then there's the other factor to consider, which is it a bad thing that, is it a potentially bad thing that it seems like there's a real lot of enthusiasm for voting and just in general, and forget the partisan part of it, just record numbers of early votes in North Carolina and Georgia. Okay. Because that probably means like Republicans are pretty enthusiastic too. They just prefer to vote a different way. And in historically, the way it's worked is Democrats have a generally lower education level and a lower
Democrats or Republicans?
Democrats. Traditionally, Democrats have had just a generally, they're the party of working people, right? So people who didn't go to college, right? People who didn't, pursue higher education. Maybe they pursued a trade or something like that. There are harder working people who have a harder time getting off work to go vote, right? Or to get childcare to go vote, right? All these types of typical things that lower income people, some, ethnic groups that have been disadvantaged in this country, um, racial groups. The Democrats have traditionally done very well with young voters too, who tend to vote less than older voters, which the Democrats do still have the advantage with the younger voters, a substantial advantage. But there's a shifting to where Trump is doing much, much better with people without college degrees, and the Democrats are doing much, much better. And one result of that is that something we used to see has gone away. What we used to see was that the Republicans would do very, very well in midterm elections because it's much easier to get people interested in a presidential election and come out and vote than one where the president's not on the ballot. And so in the midterms, the Democrats would have a harder time mobilizing their voters to come out and vote.
Always.
Always, right? And now it's kind of shifted where the Republicans are losing so the most low propensity voting problem is for special elections because they're the only election. They're usually on some random day, right? And only like the most engaged people show up for special elections. Same thing with like elections where nothing's on the ballot except like the school board or something. Like these are elections that only real partisans tend to show up for. And the Republicans have been getting killed in the Trump era in special elections. And it's because the Democrats have shifted the script. And you also saw this, and you were talking about the red wave in 2022
Yeah.
that did not appear. And one theory on that is that historically, the Democrats have had this disadvantage, but it disappeared because in 2022, all these college graduates and professionals that used to be Republicans, they're now Democrats. And they came out and they blunted the advantages that the Republicans had in that cycle. So here's the counterintuitive thing. It could be that the worst thing for Harris is for massive turnout. The people that are the people that Trump is struggling with, he has all these people that they'll vote for him if they vote, but they probably won't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think he also, in particular, like he's just not an attractive person. So it's like, I mean, if you're in the cult, you're in the cult.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're not in the cult and maybe you're dissatisfied with Biden and you're not happy with Harris, it's still like you got to get over a hurdle to,
Yeah, I know.
be,
I know people just like that. As a matter of fact, I know people who are just like, oh, fucking Harris, Biden, Israel, Gaza. My complaint of the day.
sure, that's
they
from the
have,
left, right?
yeah, but then they're like,
or
but then
it's
they're like, oh, but then
inflation
they're
or
like, oh
something.
God, I could never vote for Trump either. Oh God, like heck, I mean, our friend Steve, who we talked to a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
he's largely an independent voter. He voted for Bush over Gore, voted for Bush twice, voted for Obama once, then voted for Romney. When Trump ran, he held his nose and voted for Clinton because could not stand Donald Trump. And he's one of those guys who's kind of like maybe more right of center than we are in many ways,
Yeah.
but is looks at a person like Trump and is like, I don't think Steve is registered as either Republican or Democrat. I think he's I, but he looks at there's no way he's going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, so that's not who
You
I'm
know,
really talking about
yeah,
because
you're talking about
I'm
someone
talking about
more
the
on the
person
right.
I'm talking about a person who probably isn't going to vote, but if they do, will vote for Trump. And those are the people that Trump is focused on. And he has a whole like non-conventional um, get out the vote strategy based on go find these 20 low propensity voters. All right. Everybody's supposed to go find like 20 low propensity voters, like way out in the sticks or something. And the people are like, well, why am I not seeing Trump people knocking doors in the suburbs? And they're like, because those aren't the people. The people we want are like harder to find. And they're. So I guess people who are registered to vote, but just haven't been voting, people like that, that's who they're trying to pull those people out of the woodwork.
I saw an
And
article or two about that.
they're not really working too much persuasion, right? I mean, they're
Yeah,
hitting their themes, they're hitting their immigration theme hard, and they're hitting inflation hard and stuff. But I think any Republican candidate would be utilizing those issues because they're strong issues for them.
yep.
But in the case of their turnout, their strategy is like we need to bring all these people out. So it's kind of weird. It's not exactly like a base strategy, but it is because they're not focused on persuasion. So anyway, when I look at the high voter turnout in North Carolina and Georgia, traditionally I would be like, that is a super awesome sign. That means the elections, they're going to come out, everybody's going to come out, they're going to dwarf his little cult, right? But there's another side of me that's going, oh crap, right? Oh crap, like
Because maybe those low
all these
propensity
all these
voters.
low propensity voters are going to come out for Trump, and they're not showing up in the polls. And it's like, well, then here's the last thing. Well, maybe that's the 4% that they're juicing to Trump. right? And maybe they're right, and maybe this is a complete toss-up, or worse.
Or worse. On that terrifying note, we're going to wrap this up. We do want to let you know that the best way to support us is through Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/Progress Pondcast. You can always search for us at Patreon. A little bit goes a long way. We always have equipment to update. God knows I need a new mic. Marty could probably use a new mic. I could use a new hard drive. Your Patreon goes a long way towards supporting us. Also, we're going to try to have more episodes coming out as the election gets closer. We do have a few guests on schedule as well, so that should be fun. You won't have to hear just the two of us yapping back and forth. We thought our episode with Joe Hohenstein went very well, and of course, our episode with Mike from Ohio was a complete blast, and we'd like to have more people like that on, and we will as we get forward. Was there anything else you wanted me to mention, Marty? I feel like my mind is blanking on something.
I don't know. I think we were going to save our escape plan for the next episode in case, the election turns the wrong way. But, yeah.
We can always broadcast from a colony and talking over each other.
What was that? A colony where?
We can always podcast from a colony in Portugal or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan. Yeah.
Though to be 100% honest, I actually my girlfriend and I do have a plan B that we've been working on slowly but surely in the if worst comes to worst. But we can talk about that all next week or the week after, because we're going to try to do a lot more of these podcasts. I'm going to try to have more energy after school and on the weekends. So on behalf of me, Brendan Squire, and Marty Longman, this has been the Progress Pondcast, episode 16. Once again, please find us on Patreon and throw us a buck or two so we can update our equipment. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Music. You can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us on CastBox. You can find us on Amazon. I think you can finally find us on Google Podcasts as well. Please like and share our episodes with your friends. Post us on Facebook. Link to us on the Twitter or the X or the Blue Sky or the Instagram. Subscribe. Do all that stuff. Make us the greatest podcasters in the world so we don't have to work at our lousy jobs anymore. And we can do a podcast every single day of our turgid opinions. As always, our intro and outro music is provided by the Royal Hounds from Nashville, Tennessee, which I should mention on their most recent album, Plate Full of Nothing, they have a wonderful Christmas song called Christmas Stofferson. I might play it as our outro music today. It's the only Christmas song I actually really like. I'm sure that just like me, Marty was hit pretty hard by Christofferson's death. He was a giant. But now I'm babbling. Once again, support us on Patreon. Look us up on all the platforms I shouted out a few minutes ago, and we will see you next time.
Over and out, folks.
Over and out.
Music Row on Christmas Eve in 1969. A janitor, he scanned the floor, admired how it shined. Turned the key, Studio B as he called his night complete. A flashing sky was followed by a cry out in the street. The janitor then ran over to help the bearded man. Friend, you banged up pretty bad, here let me help you stand. Oh, can I lend a hand? The gentleman in red, he said, I got a job to do. Now I'll never make it round